You want to know something interesting about women? Most of the time, when a man starts ignoring her, she doesn't get angry. She gets curious. And curiosity in a woman's mind is dangerous. It makes her dig, question, replay, and even chase. That's the part men don't understand. Ignoring a woman doesn't just silence her, it messes with her emotional chemistry. It challenges her sense of control. It triggers a deep need to understand what changed. But here's where it gets darker. A woman's mind connects emotional distance with loss and loss with value. So the more distant you become, the more valuable you suddenly appear. The more she feels unseen, the more she wants to be seen by you. It's not about love anymore. It becomes about ego, validation, and emotional dominance. That's the twisted power behind ignoring a woman. Now, let's break it down. 1. Ignoring a woman triggers her instinct to reclaim control. When a woman feels ignored, something powerful happens inside her, not emotionally at first, but psychologically. Women are naturally wired to sense emotional shifts. When attention suddenly fades, it triggers a subtle panic, not because she's weak, but because her subconscious interprets it as a loss of control. Women like to feel secure in how someone feels about them. So when you go quiet, she starts to feel a loss of influence over the situation. That's when her ego kicks in. It's no longer about affection. It's about restoring that control. She starts thinking, why isn't he calling? Who has his attention now? The more she thinks, the more emotionally invested she becomes without realizing it. The darker part is that ignoring a woman doesn't just confuse her. It flips her internal power dynamics. You stop chasing. She starts thinking. You pull away. She starts reaching. That emotional imbalance becomes addictive. There was this woman who had been dating a man who used to text her every morning without fail. Then one week, he just stopped. No explanation. She told herself she wouldn't text first. 2 days later, she was checking her phone every hour. By the 3rd day, she was typing a message and deleting it over and over. By the 5th day, she texted him, not out of love, but frustration. That's the mind's attempt to reclaim power. Ignoring a woman doesn't just make her miss you. It makes her need to reestablish emotional control. And that's where her attention shifts completely to you, even when she doesn't want it to. 2. Ignoring a woman creates emotional confusion that feeds obsession. When you ignore a woman, you don't just withdraw attention. You interrupt her emotional rhythm. Most women process affection and connection through consistency. When that pattern breaks, her brain scrambles for answers. The confusion becomes emotional chaos, and chaos makes her think about you even more. She starts replaying conversations in her head, wondering if she said something wrong. She questions her worth, her actions, her tone. The silence from your end becomes louder than any words could be. What's dark about this is that her mind begins trying to fix the uncertainty. And that's how obsession begins. She doesn't want to be ignored, but she also can't stop trying to make sense of it. When you ignore her, she starts creating her own narrative to fill the silence. Sometimes she convinces herself you're testing her loyalty. Other times, she believes you found someone else. Either way, her emotions keep her locked in a mental loop. The reason this tactic is powerful is because women are emotional problem solvers. They crave clarity. But when you remove that clarity, you keep them chasing closure that may never come. That's what makes ignoring such a deep psychological tool. It feeds her need for answers while starving her of them at the same time. 2. Imagine a woman who's been talking to a man daily for weeks. Suddenly, he stops replying to her texts. No fight, no reason, just silence. She tells herself she doesn't care, but her mind betrays her. She checks his social media, tries to read meaning into his posts, and every time he views her story but doesn't message, it drives her insane. She starts missing him. But what she truly misses is the certainty she once had. That's how emotional confusion turns into mental fixation. Not love, but psychological addiction. 3. Ignoring a woman makes her question her own value. When you ignore a woman, you're not just making her feel unseen, You're quietly shaking her sense of self-worth. Women attach a lot of meaning to emotional reciprocity. So when she gives energy and it's not returned, she starts to internalize that rejection. Her mind whispers things like, maybe I'm not enough, maybe I did too much, maybe he never really liked me. That's where the real psychological impact begins. Ignoring a woman doesn't just create silence, it creates self-doubt. It forces her to see herself through your lack of reaction. Suddenly, she starts adjusting her tone, her appearance, even her personality just to feel noticed again. She tries to become the version of herself she thinks will get your attention back. That's how subtle emotional manipulation takes root without a single word being spoken. The dangerous part is that she won't always admit this. She'll act unbothered, post confidently online, maybe even flirt with others, but deep down, she's battling questions that weren't there before. And that's exactly why ignoring a woman works on such a dark level. It rewires her confidence into insecurity. 3. There was a woman who dated a guy for a few months. He suddenly grew distant, texted less, barely called, and made excuses to be busy. She told herself she'd mirror his energy, but deep down she felt rejected. She started comparing herself to other women he followed, wondering if they were more his type. By the time he texted her again, she responded immediately, not out of interest, but out of a need to feel worthy again. When you ignore a woman long enough, she begins to crave your validation, just to quiet the self-doubt you created. That's not attraction anymore, that's emotional conditioning. 4. Ignoring a woman forces her to chase emotional closure. When a woman feels emotionally disconnected, her natural instinct is to understand why. Ignoring her removes that understanding completely. She can handle confrontation, even rejection. But silence, that's what drives her crazy. Silence feels unfinished. It leaves too many unanswered questions. And that's exactly why many men underestimate how powerful ignoring can be. It's not the act itself. It's the psychological reaction it triggers. When you stop communicating, her mind starts to fill in the blanks. She replays moments, tries to decode your last message, even reads meaning into your punctuation. What she's really looking for is closure, a way to emotionally end the story that you left hanging. But here's the twist. Chasing closure makes her chase you. Every unanswered question leads her right back to the person who created the confusion, you. And the more she tries to figure it out, the more emotionally tied she becomes. 4. Picture this. A woman ends things with a man because she feels he's not emotionally available. He doesn't beg. He doesn't argue. He simply walks away. Days turn into weeks, and his silence says everything she never expected. Suddenly, she's the one seeking answers. Did he ever care? Was I wrong about him? She tells herself she needs closure, but really she's chasing the same silence she thought she wanted. That's the dark psychology behind ignoring a woman. It doesn't just make her miss you, it keeps her emotionally locked in a story she can't finish. And until she finds closure, her thoughts will keep coming back to you over and over again. 5. Ignoring a woman makes her romanticize you. When you ignore a woman long enough, something strange starts to happen. She begins to idealize you. Her mind starts creating versions of you that may not even exist. She fills in the silence with imagination, not reality. That's the trickiest part of the entire psychology. Ignoring doesn't just make her miss what was real. It makes her crave what she thinks she lost. When a woman feels emotionally starved, her brain turns memories into comfort. She starts remembering the smallest things you did, the tone of your voice, your smile, the way you used to make her feel seen. But instead of seeing your flaws, she starts to filter them out. The silence forces her to focus only on the best parts of you. And that's how emotional attachment deepens, even when you're not present. Men often think ignoring a woman means she'll get over it. But that's not how it works. The brain hates emotional gaps. It fills them with fantasy. And fantasy is always more addictive than reality. She might tell her friends she's moved on, but secretly she's replaying memories, justifying your silence as maturity or mystery. 5. There was a man who stopped reaching out after months of seeing someone. Instead of feeling rejected, she convinced herself he was just busy or focused on himself. She even told her friends he was different, more disciplined, when in truth he had simply lost interest. Her mind romanticized his distance into depth, his silence into strength. That's how ignoring becomes powerful. It allows a woman to build a version of you that's far more irresistible than who you truly are. And that version, that's the one she'll crave long after you're gone. 6. Ignoring a woman makes her mirror your detachment. When a woman has been ignored long enough, something inside her begins to shift. The same energy she used to chase with. She starts using to protect herself. She mirrors your silence, not because she's over you, but because she's tired of bleeding for attention. At first, she struggles with it. She wants to reach out, but pride holds her back. Eventually, emotional detachment becomes her defense mechanism. She starts acting like she doesn't care. Even when she does, she distracts herself, posts confidently, and talks to new people, but not to move on, to feel like she's in control again. It's not revenge, it's self-preservation. The same tactic you use to gain power now becomes her shield. Ignoring a woman can make her chase you. Yes, but if you push it too far, it hardens her. You train her to detach, and once she emotionally disconnects, there's no going back. You may have her attention at first, but you'll lose her soul in the process. That's the irony most men never see. When you silence her, she learns how to silence her feelings. And by the time you realize she's stopped chasing, she's already teaching herself how to forget you. 7. Ignoring a woman makes her compete without realizing it. When a woman feels ignored, she starts to subconsciously compare herself to others, not because she's insecure by nature, but because she's trying to figure out who took her place. That's the hidden competitive instinct in female psychology. It's not always about wanting you back. It's about not wanting to lose to another woman, ignoring her triggers, that silent rivalry she didn't even know she had. Suddenly, she's posting more, dressing better, and showing up in places where she might be seen, not for herself, but to prove that she's still desirable. It's her way of reminding you and herself that she's still wanted. What's dark about this is that men often mistake this behavior for confidence, when in reality, it's a subtle form of emotional panic. She's trying to regain control of the story to show that your silence didn't affect her, even though it did. And the more you stay quiet, the more she performs online, in public, even in conversations. She becomes intentional about her image because she's no longer trying to connect with you emotionally. She's trying to win. That's the dangerous shift ignoring creates. It turns what used to be attraction into quiet competition. She's not trying to love you anymore. She's trying to prove she didn't lose. 8. Ignoring a woman makes her reevaluate her standards. After the emotional storm, the confusion, and the silent battles within her mind, something powerful happens. She begins to see things differently. The same silence that once hurt her starts teaching her lessons she didn't ask for. She starts realizing that attention isn't love and communication isn't connection. She begins to separate effort from interest. Ignoring a woman long enough can force her to sit with her own emotions, and that reflection changes everything. She starts questioning why she tolerated inconsistency in the first place, why she felt the need to chase, to prove, to please. What used to make her anxious now makes her cautious. She stops romanticizing silence and starts recognizing it as emotional immaturity. And that's where the shift happens. She no longer craves attention. She craves peace. She starts valuing men who are emotionally present, who communicate, who don't play games. You become a reminder of what she doesn't want anymore. It's not always anger that follows being ignored. Sometimes it's awakening. She realizes that being ignored isn't rejection. It's redirection, a push to outgrow emotional dependency and start choosing differently. When a woman reaches that point, you no longer control her emotions. You become part of the story that taught her how to control them herself. 9. Ignoring a woman can backfire. Men often mistake power for immaturity. Let's be real. Too many men use ignoring as a form of emotional control, thinking it makes them mysterious or powerful. But in reality, it often exposes insecurity, not strength. When a man ignores a woman just to feel in control, what he's really doing is hiding from emotional responsibility. Silence doesn't make you strong. Emotional discipline does. There's a fine line between setting boundaries and playing games. When you ignore a woman as a tactic, you might win her attention temporarily, but you lose her respect permanently. A woman might chase at first, but eventually she'll see through it. She'll realize that your silence isn't mystery. It's emotional immaturity dressed as confidence. The irony is that men who think ignoring women gives them power are usually the same men who can't handle being ignored themselves. They crave control, but crumble when the energy is mirrored back. And that's the sad cycle. They play hard to get until they realize the woman has actually gotten over them. Men need to wake up to this truth. Ignoring a woman doesn't make her more loyal. It makes her more aware. You might think you're teaching her a lesson, but she's the one learning something deeper. That love shouldn't feel like confusion. If you're ignoring her to test her, ask yourself what you're really afraid of. Connection, vulnerability, or simply being seen for who you are. Because when a man uses silence as a weapon, he's not leading. He's hiding. 10. Ignoring a woman only works until she stops caring. At first, silence feels powerful. You think she's waiting, wondering, hoping. But here's the truth most men forget. Every woman eventually reaches a point where she just stops caring. That's when the power completely shifts. Once her emotions detach, there's nothing left for you to manipulate. The texts you used to ignore won't come anymore. The calls stop. The effort disappears. And when she's quiet, is not the same silence you gave. Hers is final. Ignoring a woman works only when she still feels something. Once her mind accepts that your silence is permanent, her heart begins to rebuild itself. She starts redirecting that energy into her own life, her goals, her peace, her self-worth. You stop being the story and become just a sentence in her growth. That's what most men fail to understand. Attention might win her body, but consistency wins her loyalty. Ignoring might control her emotions temporarily, but eventually it teaches her indifference. And when a woman becomes indifferent, she's gone long before you even realize it. We've previously mentioned that ignoring a woman might seem like a clever psychological move, and yes, it does work, but only for a while. The same silence that once gave you power eventually destroys your influence. Because no woman stays in emotional confusion forever. She either breaks or evolves. And when she evolves, your silence no longer feels mysterious. It feels meaningless. The darkest truth is this: men who rely on ignoring women to feel powerful usually end up ignored by better women. Because confidence isn't about who can stay silent the longest. It's about who can communicate with clarity, lead with maturity, and love with strength. Ignoring her may have made her chase you once, but it will never make her respect you twice. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever used silence as a form of control, or had it used against you? Comment your experience below. I actually read through them, and I'll reach out personally to some of you. And before you go, make sure you like, share, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel, because the next video might just reveal the other side of this game. The moment when ignoring her no longer works, but she starts ignoring you back. Now tell me, are you ready for that?